Hey everyone, I am really excited for today's episode. We are going to talk about why women can't sleep and understanding the sleep difficulties that so many women face. This was actually requested by popular demand, and I think it's a really, really great topic. And so I can't wait to get into it. So I myself too have had sleep issues off and on in my life, and can kind of go through that as well. But one of the things of the most prominent complaints that my patients come to me with is sleep. And it may not even be their primary one. They might be coming for something else, but upon uncovering, all the questions that I ask, sleep is an issue. And with sleep issues, it can be anything from, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, or just even feeling like you are laying there with your eyes closed, tossing and turning, really restless sleep. That is also what I'm talking about. And so anything in that realm can kind of be this. And I do want to first, before we get into sleep issues, I always like to give some kind of expectation management. So life is life. There's going to be different things thrown at us all the time, different situations, some stressier than others. And so it's not realistic to expect ourselves to get perfect sleep all the time. There are going to be better nights than others for sure. And I think that that is important to recognize and not catastrophize. Because when we start to catastrophize, like, oh, I didn't sleep great last night, or I'm having a week where I'm not sleeping great, or this big situation's happening and unfolding in my life, and it's really impacting my sleep, there are things we can do absolutely to help that for sure. And we don't want anybody going prolonged amounts of time with lack of sleep, but this is life. And so I always give that kind of expectation that like a couple nights here and there, especially when you're under quite a bit of stress or pressure, might create some lack of sleep. And that is okay. So I want to talk about some reasons why women really struggle with chronic sleep deprivation or chronic sleep issues and problems. So, the number one thing is nervous system regulation. Your brain has to feel very safe to sleep. If it feels, back to our ancestors' age, like something's lurking outside of our bedroom, like a wild animal, their cave or whatever, you might doze off, and get sleepy, but you're gonna like be jolted awake numerous times throughout the night because your brain does not feel safe enough to sleep. So hopefully we're not living in caves and there's no threats of wild animals in our modern culture, but things like finances and urgency and social media and politics and bosses and, our businesses or our places of employment or toxic relationships or our children, all of these things create issues for us in our brain that maybe don't feel safe. So we're going to talk about some hormonal things that can cause sleep disturbances and some other reasons for this. But moral of the story is most people who don't sleep well, it is because their brain does not feel safe enough to sleep. Now, if you have had chronic sleep deprivation and you snore and you're constantly like groggy in the daytime, maybe it's time for a sleep study to rule out something like sleep apnea. Of course, that can be a real physical thing that needs to be treated with a sleep device or whatever your doctor recommends. But I do think that that can be part of it. And then there also can be, other symptoms associated with lack of sleep, like especially for menopausal women, like hot flashes, night sweats, pain, different symptoms like that. And so if, we always want to sort of like look at sleep and treat what we're seeing, in which a lot of those other things can also be nervous system related as well. But if you just feel like you cannot sleep well and you're like, I don't know what's going on, it's probably a big part of your nervous system. Now, with that, there are some basic sleep hygiene things before we get into this. So, number one, blue light, tablets, screens in our face, scrolling before bed, that is going to tell your brain it's daytime. And so, instead of producing melatonin, which is going to help our body sleep better, and melatonin is also a great antioxidant. It has a lot of other functions as well. Your body's going to start producing cortisol because it's like, oh, we're confused here. It's supposed to be night, but I guess it's not. It must be daytime. And so we must need more cortisol. So cortisol is part of our circadian rhythm. It fluctuates throughout the day. And we want to have low levels of cortisol at night so that we can get a break from it and really get into that nice deep sleep. So first off, making sure that you're doing some good sleep hygiene. Your room is cool. Somewhere between 60 and 68 degrees is what science recommends your room temperature being for good sleep. You're comfortable. Your pillows are comfortable. Your blankets, they're the right heaviness, the right weight. You're sleeping in a dark room. You are having the right amount of airflow and noise, whether that's, white noise or brown noise or no noise. Some people don't like any noise. Those things need to be ironed out for you to get good sleep. And I think, most of us by the time we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s kind of know how we generally like to sleep and what feels good to us. I like a lot of airflow. I like a lot of white noise. Our bedroom sounds like an airplane's taking off with all the fans going. And that is how I sleep the best. And it's got to be dark. I don't sleep well when there's light shining in and things like that. So I know that for myself. And so definitely setting that up. And then, also I think, and this is part of sort of like the nervous system stuff, but when we are going through the day, just like with our head chopped off, just going, doing chores, putting out fires, this activity, then this, and then this, and then we just expect to get into bed and lay down and go to sleep soundly for 8 hours, that's an unrealistic expectation too. I always give the analogy to my patients of like a snow globe. So all day long, we are like shaking up that snow globe. We got to set it down and let that come down so that our body can be calm and safe, and all of that adrenaline, all of that cortisol has got a chance to actually unwind, come back down so that we can sleep well. So I encourage you to have a bedtime routine with the caveat that sometimes, and I'm going to talk about this with the nervous system stuff, sometimes there's this idea of outcome dependence, meaning like I have to do everything perfectly. My supplement regimen has to be perfectly, my bedtime routine, the light, sound, the noise, the sheets, like everything has to align perfectly for me to sleep. And that is putting a lot of pressure on yourself to sleep. So what I mean by a bedtime routine is just kind of like doing something that feels good. It's way less about what it is and more like the response that it elicits. Again, I know that social media scrolling can feel really relaxing to a lot of people and numbing, but it is sort of like empty calories. It is empty self-care. There is usually a trigger. It's giving you blue light. It's giving you a lot of stimulation because we are just getting like one thing after the other thing. And that's a lot of stimulation, too much content for our brain to kind of make sense of, especially that late in the day. So if we can like read, do a stretching routine, have a nice cup of tea, sit in the dark, just slow down, do a skincare routine or take a bath or have a, great conversation with a spouse or kids, hug, physical touch. Any of these types of things are things that can just kind of help your nervous system wind down. Now, again, the worst thing that you can do to get good sleep is put pressure on it. Take it from me. Every time in my life in my adult life that I have been like, okay, I need a really good night's sleep. Like I'm just feeling exhausted. I'm burnt out. I'm XYZ. I just really want this great night's sleep. And I'll take my supplements and I'll read and I'll just get everything all perfect. Those are the nights that I sleep the worst every time, because the pressure has been put on to like really get good sleep. And pressure is one of the worst things for sleep. So we really want to do this bedtime routine with the thought of like, this feels good. It's necessary. It's great for me. It's healthy. And I may or may not sleep well because of it. Either is okay. So that's a big thing that I tell my patients to take the pressure off is I may or may not sleep well tonight, and either is okay. I know when I say that, and if you haven't slept, I know your brain's like, it's not okay. It's definitely not okay. I need to sleep. This is miserable. This is why I came to this video to get better advice on how to sleep, and this is the worst. I totally get it. But when we have all of this pressure and we're like, I gotta sleep, I'm so anxious about it. Why can't I sleep? What should I take? What's the perfect supplements? What's wrong with me? How do I fix this? That is giving your brain and your nervous system so many messages of danger that if you don't sleep, you're gonna be tired and that's gonna be really bad. And then we might feel more anxious and then we might be more snappy and then this might happen. And sleep is so important for health. That is a lot of pressure. So I encourage you, if you first off have trouble sleeping, I need you to take the pressure off. It is going to take some time in your brain to really get into this place of indifference, of basically just reassuring yourself that this is okay. But the minute that you settle down, your symptoms will settle down. If you stay really uptight and freaked out and anxious about the fact that you're not sleeping, you're going to continue to not sleep because you're wiring that in your neural pathways. This is a very scientific process on how our brain works. You are wiring that in that that's a big deal. And when there's a big deal in our brain, it likes to create a lot of cortisol, a lot of adrenaline, a lot of hypervigilance to this situation. So when you can't sleep before bed, and I know there's people who get anxious before they even go to sleep. They're just like, oh God, the night's coming. Like, what if I can't sleep? You almost get nervous. You put the pressure on, you get kind of scared. That's the perfect time to start saying and practicing this indifference of, I may or may not sleep well tonight. Either is okay. I'm still resting. This is still okay. I've made it through 100% of the nights I haven't slept so far. Have the days been great? Have I felt fantastic? No, it's not amazing, but we are still safe. This is not a life-threatening situation. It's just annoying and I just don't feel great with it, but that's it. It's just uncomfortable. And so if we can start to really dial back that pressure and that fear and preoccupation with the lack of sleep or how we're sleeping, that is when the symptoms start to fade. Same thing in the middle of the night. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you're staring straight up at the ceiling, we do the same thing. Okay, I'm still resting. This is fine. Oh, interesting. My brain doesn't feel safe enough to sleep. We can still, turn on a podcast with the phone on its face so that you aren't seeing it to kind of entertain your brain. If it gets, bad, you can start to read. You can go to a different room. But the moral of the story is the biggest goal here is not to make yourself go back to sleep, because you all know what I'm talking about. When you turn on the meditation and you're sitting there breathing, and you're saying, I need to go back to sleep, and then the meditation ends and you're still awake. That creates the despair, frustration, freak out cycle all over again. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm still awake. This is so miserable. I didn't even make it through that. This is supposed to put me to sleep. This meditation doesn't even work. So I need you to not do that. You can focus on your breath. If you can legitimately stay calm and indifferent to, I am just focusing on my breath here. I'm breathing really deep in my nose. I'm breathing in through my diaphragm. I am belly breathing, but you don't care if you go back to sleep. It has to be that, or otherwise it's going to keep you awake. So do what you can in the middle of the night to keep yourself calm. It's this idea of outcome independence. The only goal that you have is to make sure that you're not freaking out about it. And when you sort of have that corrective experience of, okay, this is okay, not ideal, but we're fine to experience this, we're still safe, that is when the symptoms fade and you go back to sleep. It may, for some of you, this has been wired in for a while and you've been freaking out and having this like frustration, despair, fear type of cycle going on for months or years. So it's going to take more than one time for you to say, okay, I did that and it didn't work. It's probably going to need to be rewired and have a few corrective experiences at least. And I want to say that you've got to do this with conviction. It can't just be like your brain's freaking out and you're like, I'm okay. I'm okay. You got to believe it. You have to get to that deep belief that you are okay and you can sleep. So that is a big thing. So a lot of women can't sleep because their nervous system is dysregulated. When your nervous system is dysregulated, that basically means that the internal fire alarm, like your kitchen, is going off. And maybe you just burnt the toast and it's kind of a minor thing and your brain got a glitchy sort of signal, or maybe there is a full-fledged fire in your life and your nervous system is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's actively doing what it needs to do to help save your life. And so when that happens, your brain is just on a high alert. It's just saying, hey, something doesn't feel quite right here. You need to stay hyper vigilant to this. And unfortunately, your nervous system does not care if it's night or day. So that brings me to kind of like this next thing. I think a lot of us are on autopilot and going through life and not really checking in with how we're doing with it, right? So maybe we have financial issues. Maybe we have health issues. Maybe we have a toxic relationship. Maybe our kids aren't doing great. Maybe, our job is really, really stressful. And we as women particularly are so dang good at repressing. We repress, repress, repress. This is fine. I'm just going to go through the weeds. I'm not going to think about this. I'm just going to convince myself it's okay. Your brain knows. We can lie to ourselves and convince ourselves and reassure ourselves and seek reassurance and validation until the cows come home. But your brain knows. So if your brain is going off about a situation in your life that is not good, and you are just trying to kind of shove it underneath the surface, sweep it under that rug, your brain knows. So let's start to look at those categories of life and see how we're feeling about each one. And by health, I mean, are you moving your body? Are you eating healthy food? Are you doing what your values say? All of us have different values in our life. And if we are out of alignment with those particular values, your nervous system is going to feel very uncomfortable with that. And you're going to want to acknowledge that and get back in alignment with those values. And sometimes that can be really hard. But I really encourage you to really look at the different categories of your life between your work, your life, your career, your business, and see what's there. Do you feel good and aligned and like you're supposed to be there? Or does it feel like a big fight every day? Do you feel like you're swimming against the current there and just things are not aligned? How can we fix that part of things, right? Can we go to therapy? Can we reframe things? Can we express our emotions? Can we, express our words and use our voice to people to voice our needs and our wants and our desires in that? Can we get more respect there? Do we need to quit? Do we need to say, this isn't worth my life and my mental health and my values? I need to find a different job, or I need to do my business differently in a way that aligns with me. I certainly can be very upfront here. That has happened in my own life. There has been things. I've been doing my online business for 7 years, and I've been an entrepreneur for about 13. And there have definitely been times that I've hired business coaches or, talked to other colleagues, all very well intentioned, by the way, that things just didn't feel right. And I went against it and I was like, well, this person's telling me to do this. This must be right. And I went against it and did it. And it felt like a fight the whole way. It was like my gut was like screaming at me. I was anxious. My brain was screaming at me, but I was just muddling through it. And it didn't feel good. And I think that sometimes when people have anxiety, it's hard to know if that's anxiety and you should just do things scared or if it's your gut instinct. And so I think that there's some work to be done around knowing what's what, but ultimately we should be going toward things that genuinely feel good to us and really looking at the things that we're going toward that feel very resistant. I think finances is another big area for stress, right? Like, things are expensive right now. The economy has changed since COVID, and a lot of people are feeling the heat of that. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. My husband actually is, but I'm not in the financial space, but I do know that that is an area of stress, and we are talking about stress. And so, the way that you're spending your money, does this feel good? Do you feel good when you look at your credit card statements and your bank statements? Do you feel like you're doing the right thing? And that's different for every single person. right? In every single family and every single couple. Some people are fine being a little bit more risky. Some people are, need a lot of safety net there. And there is no right answer. I'm just giving you categories of things to really look at here because it's an area, I think, of considerable stress for people. Your relationship, your marriage, how does that feel? Are you repressing? Are you using your voice in your marriage? Do you feel seen and validated and heard? If not, that's another big reason that our brain can be like on fire saying, hey, this feels really bad right here. And we're trying to alert you that this doesn't feel good. But for a lot of reasons, right? We shove that down. So look at these different areas of your life and just what doesn't feel good to you, because this is likely what's keeping your nervous system really in a hypervigilant state and probably keeping you up at night, right? And sometimes we're just like, oh, what sleep aid can I use? What supplement, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. In fact, I always say this to my patients, you guys, when our nervous system is acting up, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong, and it's not bad. It's there to alert us. And sometimes for those of us who are a little bit more anxious, it gets glitchy and it gets some of the wrong messages, that things that should be safe we sort of view as unsafe. And that's where we need to do, maybe some cognitive behavioral therapy, some reframing, some mindset work around rewiring those neural pathways. But I want to encourage you to really do a deep dive in where your stress and anxiety is coming from and be honest with yourself. As hard as it is, I know that it can be really difficult to be honest, but honesty will set you free. Because if you aren't sleeping and you're anxious and you're feeling stressed all the time and you're just like repressing it and you're needing all of this dopamine from food or alcohol or shopping or social media, there's stuff that's going on under the surface that we need to look at and address. And you will end up being a happier, healthier person in the meantime or in the future. So that's kind of my big thing about the nervous system. I think that almost all sleep issues have a root in nervous system dysregulation. Again, go to your doctor if you're concerned with something like sleep apnea, you're snoring, and let's make sure that that's ruled out, because that can definitely be possible. But otherwise, let's really look at the nervous system. Other things that can really impact sleep can be blood sugar levels. But again, blood sugar levels, when we're in this state of low blood sugar, it can trigger a release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which can cause this nighttime awakening and difficulty going back to sleep, specifically around like the 1 to 3. So if this is you, look at your food in the night. See if you look at your dinner. What time are you eating dinner? How close is it to bedtime? And it's a bit like Goldilocks. So it can't be too close. It can't be too far. So you want to maybe experiment a little bit with protein and fiber, increasing that at dinner for sure. And some of my patients with low blood sugar issues, again, generally stemming from nervous system dysregulation, I encourage them to do like a little bedtime snack, maybe like a tablespoon of peanut butter or something like that, a little bit of nuts, something like that, a little bit of fiber, fat, protein, just 100 calories or so, even, to just help them kind of stabilize that blood sugar before bed. So making sure, also during the day that you're eating balanced meals with protein, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates with lots of fiber to help really stabilize that blood sugar. Avoiding huge, large meals, caffeine and sugar too close to bedtime can really prevent those blood sugar spikes and crashes. And then also maintaining like a regular mealtime and healthy snacks can really help support your blood sugar levels. So skipping meals, going a really long time without eating, those can also create a lot of blood sugar dysregulation and also create a lot of cortisol and adrenaline through your body as well. So blood sugar is also part of this. Again, nothing is in isolation. And I always say hormonally, cortisol, adrenaline, and insulin, which is our blood sugar hormone, are all the master hormones, and they all run in a vicious circle. So we really just got to make sure, again, that our whole lifestyle is in a good place. So we are, managing stress well. We are not repressing emotions. We are eating how I just mentioned. All of that stuff will really help you to sleep well. And then, a lot of women, obviously in perimenopause or specifically before your period, in like the early stages of perimenopause, can really impact sleep. So a couple things is late perimenopause, hot flashes, night sweats. Those things can obviously wake us up at night, frozen shoulder, those things. So let's address that, and that should help sleep. Otherwise, fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone, specifically in that luteal phase. So I'm actually in the early stages of perimenopause, and I definitely notice that my sleep before my period is impacted. Remember that too, going back to this whole picture, low progesterone causes this, and adding a little progesterone can be really, really helpful if you notice that you don't sleep well right before your period. But it also is due to cortisol and nervous system dysregulation. If your adrenals are strong, your stress is managed, you tend to do better in that symptom as well. So things like Vitex or chaste tree berry, or a little oral or cream progesterone can be really helpful in that luteal phase, at helping that. Again, not individual medical advice. Please work with somebody who knows what they're doing and what symptoms you're having. But progesterone really does have a calming effect and can really decrease anxiety and sleep difficulties. We only get access to progesterone in that luteal phase, so between ovulation and the start of your period. And so that's when, if it's due to hormonal swings, that's when we'd notice this hormonal shift. Generally, a couple few days before your period, even up to a week or so. And then in that way, we'd want to really support your stress, your adrenal glands, your progesterone levels, and that can be significantly helpful for your sleep quality. So I hope this was helpful. I just really want to ride home here that when my patients come with sleep issues, we really, really, really work on mindset issues. I had a patient recently that has had long-standing sleep issues, and she told me that she slept fantastic on vacation and came home and didn't sleep great after that. And so I was like, so that is the answer for you. You know that when you're relaxed and you're not thinking about the next day and your to-do list and all the things that need to get done, that you sleep better. So how can we, in our real life, other than on vacation, what can we do to calm down that nervous system? And some of that is, obviously writing out a to-do list. If you think about things when you're sleeping and you are trying to remember them, and that's impacting sleep, keep a pen and paper right by the bed so that you can jot down, oh, I got to do this thing. So you can leave it there and let it go so that you're not having to remember it all night. If you're stressed by your daily life and feeling overwhelmed, we got to figure this out. We got to decide, are you overcommitting? Is there too much on your plate? Can we delegate things? How can we slow down? Where can we change your life so that your nervous system doesn't feel like the world's this scary, threatening place and always on fire and keeping your brain in such a hypervigilant state? We need to get that part under control. And once we get that part, symptoms as a whole really get better. And we're talking about sleep today, but symptoms such as all of it, migraines and IBS and energy issues and hot flashes and night sweats and, back pain and shoulder pain and neck pain and tension and bloating and heartburn, all of these things are related to the nervous system in some way. So how can we calm your nervous system down? And this is an individualized approach. There is no one size fits all. So if you're following someone on social media that says, do this one thing, drink this one powder, do this one supplement, and you will be fixed with your nervous system, that is not going to be an accurate statement. So please run from those types of things. In terms of supplements for sleep, I want to run through this, I guess, really quick. I do think that supplements can help. I don't think it's the end all be all. I think we have to do this work that I just outlined for you. But I think things like magnesium glycinate for a lot of people, some people have an opposite rebound effect where it actually activates them. A lot of people feel really good and relaxed. I think that can be helpful. I like a magnesium breakthrough because it has 7 different types of magnesium in it. I will leave the link in the description or the podcast notes, depending on where you're watching this, for you guys. But I do like magnesium breakthrough. Please make sure that it works with everything you have going on in terms of medication and health conditions. Other things include things like L-theanine, I think is great. GABA is great. Valerian is great. passion flower. There's all kinds of different herbs and sleep formulas. But the issue here is use them as support, use them to just kind of calm yourself down. But if you view it as this outcome dependence, I got to take this, and this whole, cocktail of sleep medications got to work, it's going to take it the wrong direction. So let's use supplements as it helps. It can wind us down a little bit, but we got to do the other mindset work as well to fully heal and get the symptom under control. So I'm going to leave you with this. When you settle down, your symptoms will also settle down. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. If you ever have questions about anything that we talk about here, please leave a comment for me. I am more than happy to help you, try to, get you in the right direction, get you in the right place for whatever's going on. On Instagram, I'm always over there, so you can feel free to direct message me anytime. And I'm here for you guys. So please let me know what you need. I obviously offered digital courses. I have a sleep solutions masterclass actually, and I have hormonal digital courses. And then I also work with people one-on-one. So you can find all of that information in the description or show notes below.